Welcome back to another episode of the Unscripted Show. Today, we have the Unscripted team with us. Alex Taylor, our producer, and Asad Mapari, our writer.
Hello.
Hi.
All right, so today's episode, it's going to be a conversation, right? We're going to talk about failure.
Of course.
Because a lot of people fear it. They don't start because they're going to fail in the end.
I think everyone fears failure. I mean, honestly.
Yeah. But there are some people who like, even with that fear, they overcome it.
Oh, it's true.
So,
and I think that's where you find success, right?
Yeah.
That's when you find the success stories. And I think it's also important that like a lot of people see the failure and they see people, overcoming failure and just like they see the success stories, right? And they think, oh, well, then that must mean that, they never failed or, their journey was easier than mine. And, I think when a lot of people fail, it can catch them off guard, and that's where they give up.
I really want to go into detail, and I want the end of this to be, if anybody of our listeners fears failing, they don't want to start because they fail, I want them to just be at the end saying, I'm going to try. Yeah. Because people don't understand. A majority of our listeners are high schoolers, right? Some are a bit older, but they're still so young. Mm-hmm. If you fail at this age,
you can only learn.
You can only learn. You only gain experience from it.
It's true.
The experience is so important.
Yeah, and that's like why I'm glad we're doing this, right? I'm glad we're doing this podcast to inspire, young people like us to go ahead and like do, because there's like almost no consequence for failing at this age, right? You don't have to pay bills and go out and like support your family. Like you have such a huge like window of opportunity and like liberty to just try and do whatever you want. So it's almost like, why would you not go out and do that?
So on most of our episodes, our goal has been to find inspirational people, to inspire others, to help them achieve something bigger, But this episode, it really is to inspire others to just be confident in themselves.
Yes.
So let's get started.
Try new things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want to start off with, let's all quickly share a failure story that is pretty big in our lives and we learned from. So Alex, go ahead.
Wow. I mean, I've failed like a lot. And I think there's a point where I just sort of don't view anything really as a failure anymore because I understand that it's a necessary step, right? Yeah. So, and I think that's all failure is. But I mean, you could consider so I've made 5 films. You can consider my first 4 films failures. And I think, not even to say that my 5th film is a great success, but it's just, and like right now, currently, and that's how I've always been, is like, when I was working on my 4th film, like my past 3 had been failures, right? Yeah. It's always just sort of, you have to, like my first like few films have been just absolutely, a nightmare when it comes to like the actual technical quality, the actual, my ability to direct and produce the film itself, the story. There's been so many things that have just like with each one improved. So you can honestly say that the former was a failure. And so
you learn from each one. You do them and you learn and you do another one and you learn.
Exactly. And that's why I don't see, so like, yes, I would consider my first 4 films of 5 failures, but I've never seen it as such. Like looking back on it now, I can say, yes, those films were failures. They did not reach the level that I wanted them to reach, or, sort of. But
before you started you started the first one, were you scared that I'm gonna try something new? What happens when I fail? And
see, that's the thing is that like, of course, I think everyone has that idea of like, can I even do this? Like, will this even, work out? Like, will I finish it? Right. That was sort of my scariest thought going into it. But I think it was sort of a thing of like in the moment, I remember so clearly, and this is part of why I don't really see, my past experiences as failures. I never thought of, this didn't turn out as well as I hoped it would be. I thought of, all right, what's next? Like,
okay, this mindset.
Yeah, it's sort of a thing of like,
the growth mindset.
Yeah, and it was sort of like, okay, well, I understand that, what I've done, like I can do it better. So let's do it better, right? Let's not let's not dwell on the past. Oh, dang, like this didn't turn out as well as I hoped it would. Like I could have done this better, I'm like, why don't I just go out and do, something else and improve on that, right?
Which really is a key takeaway.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to, it's how you view it. You may fail 1,000 times, but if you view it as, oh, now I know not to do this. Now I know not to do things. There's 1,000 things you've learned.
Yes.
Yeah. If you look at it like that, then you're always gonna you're gonna go places.
You're gonna go places. And it was funny actually. Today, my sister she's practicing driving. She's learning stick shift.
Yeah.
Because everyone in my family does. But like literally, she stalled and she freaked out and she had that moment, right? And I was talking to her about it, and I was kind of like, everyone sucks when they start to learn how to drive. Like they just do. And that's but it's because you haven't had those experiences to build your instincts, right? Yeah. You get into a scary like experience, maybe it's a crash, maybe it's like an almost crash, or you get cut off, you cut someone off. Like you get into any of those experiences which are terrifying, but you learn from them immediately, right? It's sort of a thing of, okay, well, now in the future, I know to check my mirrors. I know to, watch the brake lights. And so you get sort of those things that become instincts to you so that you progressively become a better driver just by driving, right? And just by having those experiences in the first place so that you can learn from them, so that you can that can become just sort of a natural thing for you in the future. Yeah. And that is sort of like my films, right? Like, as of right now, A Simple Truth, my 5th film, is the greatest thing I've created. But I know in 2 years, not even 10 years, 2 years, I'm gonna look back on it and say, okay, there's a lot to that. That I've learned so much. I've come like such a far way, and it's just because with everything you do, like if you look at them as failures, like you can, and that's fine. But I think in the moment, you need to not dwell on, okay, you know what, this wasn't as great as I thought it was. Like, don't dwell on that, right? Just say, you know what? I recognize what my weaknesses were there. I understand where the points were where I could have done better. Let's go out and do it again. Yeah. Let's do it better next time. I know what my mistakes were. Let's go out and improve to become successful later.
What about you, Asad? What is a failure for you?
For me, I think of the time, it was with you actually, when we developed our app back in last April.
Yeah, April.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we worked on it. I was coming like almost every day. We worked on it for hours. Me, you, and David, my friend David, we were researching. And I remember it was fun. Remember our survey? We got 1,000 people in a week by just word of mouth.
In 1 week, we got 1,000 people to take a survey to get research, to go to investors and say, look, we have this data. We need this. We did a lot.
Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah. It was, especially for our age.
And we did it. It was from April till like June-ish.
Around that time.
And then
we started looking more into it. I remember I listened to a podcast, and it was one where it's pretty much like Shark Tank, but in podcast form. Mm-hmm. And the guy pretty much went, he had our exact same idea. Yeah. And all the sharks pretty much shut him down. Told him it was a terrible idea. And we were like...
And I remember I opened up my Android phone and I was looking at the Android market and I was like, there are so many apps here that are exactly like the ones we were creating.
And it was kind of disappointing because we worked months on it, but so much time, and then it just went all to nothing.
But then we ended up like, it was a failure. It was
a failure, but we learned. But we networked so much.
We networked so much.
Like during the survey when we got 1,000 people, I remember just talking to random people. I'm like, hey, take a survey. And then they'd ask, what's it about? And then we'd start talking. I remember like I'd meet someone's like, oh, I have my own business and that I'm working on too. I'm like, oh, what, really? I had no idea.
And I remember I would be on Instagram and I would look at the stories. Mm-hmm. And I swear to you, on the 6th or 7th day, before we reached our 1,000 requirement, every single story was like, hey, check out this survey. Take this survey.
No, I remember I posted about it too. And I never post. I remember like, because, everyone was contributing to that. I thought that was just an amazing thing because it's hard to get high schoolers to do anything. You know what I mean? Like we're just naturally lazy people, but it's like to contribute to someone else's thing like that. I thought that was really cool for you guys. Yeah. But I actually have a question for you. So considering I guess if you were to consider this podcast as a success, which I would consider, I mean, we've already done, we've had great content, we've had great people.
Since we've created this, there are 3 people who have come up to me and said, I'm starting a podcast because of this. Literally. 2 people have said, I want to start my own digital marketing agency.
That's awesome.
And I have more on my phone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I'd say, okay, let's say that this is not a failure. This is a success. Okay. So how did, because you guys, I remember you worked so hard on the app, and you networked a ton. How did that transfer to when we were like, hey, let's start this podcast? What did you use any connections or experiences from that?
So we met a lot of people who because we were thinking of all terms. We're like, okay, once we have an app, we need to find out who to develop it, who's going to do the coding and all, because we're not coders. But we did everything that they would need. We'd literally give them the sheet of paper and they could just code from that. And so we met people like FaZe. Because FaZe said, once you have an app, let me know. I have an agency. I'll help you. We met FaZe. We met some other people who I would just listen to their stories because this entrepreneur hype. The reason why I was like, yo, I want to do something of my own, because I was sitting around people who were entrepreneurs themselves.
Who were achieving.
And that, and so it was like, yo, which is why it's so important when they say hang out with the right people, you know? If I'm hanging out with a bunch of buffoons, I'm a buffoon as well, you know? Like, let's be real. But they were like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. I've quit my job. My cousin was a big part of it. He was like, yeah, I quit my job and I'm doing my own business. And I was like, that is so cool.
I remember speaking to him about that.
And we would literally go up with him like every month and we'll like say, oh, here's where we're at now. Here's where we're at now. And so when we started the podcast, I was like, dude, we're starting a podcast. And we decided, we were sitting at that Mediterranean restaurant, all three of us.
I remember.
June.
Mid-June.
And we said we were going to start a podcast.
That's true.
But we started in November.
That's right.
Remember?
But yeah, so I mean, again, that shows like, you know, even though we got here, it was a long thing, and it was even hard to get started. I remember because months would pass where we just didn't do anything.
We wouldn't even talk about it.
We literally, because I mean, we would hang out and we would like see each other, and in that time we could have talked about it. We could have met up more times. Like we had free time. It was the summer. It was summer. You know, and it's crazy that we've done more work on it during school during the crazy times, but it's sort of a thing of like, you know, that can even show you that it is hard to start. It's hard to start,
and sometimes it's laziness, sometimes it's a fear, right?
Yes, exactly.
A part of us was laziness because we can't lose anything here.
Exactly.
And for us it was straight up laziness, but for some people it's, oh god, if I start I'm a fail. You know. And
I think, you know, part of that in my mind is like, again, going back to like the people who see these success stories and they say, oh, well, you know, they made it. So like they had it, you know, maybe they had it difficult, whatever, right?
They just got
but
lucky.
I think, because I think there are kind of different types of people in the world, right? Like some people who will work and not quit until what they're working on has turned into this gold thing that they like, gold sort of ingot of success. And then there's other people who work and they see these other people and who have achieved success. They blame it on luck. They blame it on other things. And they're like, you know what? This will never happen for me. So they quit before it's gold. Not like if they had continued further, if they had pivoted, if they had, you know, put more of their time and energy into it or stuck with it longer, it could have turned out to be something really great. And I think in those people, out of fear of failure and everything, they actually succumb to that failure, to that fear, and then they get discouraged.
A lot of times though, that's a lot of times is, oh, you know, it's not working out. But sometimes the person has put their everything into it. You know, it's like, I've literally done everything I can and now I'm going to move on. And I feel like once you decide to move on, don't look back. Don't say it could have been something. We don't ever say that our app could have been something. Even if we had tried more.
Exactly.
We did our part. Now let's move on.
Take the knowledge you got from it. Apply it to like learn from your mistakes, right? So apply what, like, okay, this was a mistake, I did this wrong, let's try this a different way. And then apply that to what you're doing now. Like and that's the thing is, I think,
but a lot of people say, where do I start? And so I think it's really quick where people understand look, we've talked to business people, we've talked to athletes, we've talked to all these people. Find a passion. I really say, if you want to do something, find your passion and go into there. You know,
you can find a different route to it. Like, it doesn't have to be like one thing. There's many different fields.
Literally. And it all, I mean, with me, everything that I've ever done has started with an idea. Oh, this would be crazy if we did a podcast, right? Like, and it's just sort of a thing. And I remember our podcast idea started as a show. We were like, hey, let's make a show, right? And so that's the thing is, I think people are so scared of failure that it's, you know, like with us, right? We accepted that, okay, a show is not the right thing for us to do. We don't have time. We don't have the resources. We can't put on a good show like that.
And real quick, people also don't be so rigid on one idea.
That's what I'm saying. It's like,
it's gotta change.
Like we pivoted, right? We understood
1,000 times.
1,000 times.
At one point we were going to recreate Seinfeld, okay? Like, let's be honest. We're like, that's it. I'll be Jerry, you be Kramer. We'll record this.
And
it's crazy.
And that's the thing is, like, you know, I think part of accepting that failure is just a stepping stone to success is understanding that, like, hey, you're not always right. Right? Like, it's not always just the universe telling you, hey, this is not meant to work out. Sometimes sometimes you've done things that have not been the right move. You've not made the right call. And I think, but with that is if you're able to look back on that and see that, if you're able to look back and say, oh, you know what? Yeah, that wasn't the right call to make. I should have done this instead of that. Then you are able to accept your failure and learn from it. And that's the key, right? That is the key to achieving success in the future.
One thing I was thinking is like, along with like your self-doubt and with failure, it's also what other people think, whether it's family and friends. Like if you fail,
so what do you think about that, Asad?
Just like if pretend you wanted to start your own business, like quit your job and stuff. What would you like going to your family and saying, I'm quitting my job, I'm gonna start my own business. What would your family say? And if you go against them and you fail, what are they gonna think about you? It just.
So how do you overcome that? What is your thoughts on that?
I feel like if you're passionate about something, you should just go for it and fully go for it. Just put everything into it, especially if you're doing something as big as quitting your job. Just completely go for it, work hard.
But have the right research before.
Don't jump
quit
into it
saying,
right
oh, that's it. You know what? I'm going to quit and tomorrow I'll think of something to do for my business.
You had a bad day at work and you quit.
That's it. No, you got to have a plan and then you got to do something. You know.
And you also have to understand that, look, it may, like the whole thing of risk is, there is a big possibility that it doesn't work out, right? Okay. But I think when people don't do something, when people decide, you know what, it's fine, like because of the risk, I'm not going to do it. Instantly, then you've sealed your destiny as, hey, you failed already, right?
Yeah.
Because when you take the risk and you say, you know what, I'm going to try something, then you have the possibility of succeeding. It's not guaranteed at all.
At the end of the day, even if you don't make it, that regret that I didn't do it, that's what kills you.
And I think that's so much worse. Like, I never want to live my life of saying, you know, like, because film is not a stable job at all. It's one of the least stable jobs there is. And like, but definitely, when I look back on it at the end of my life, if I die like a hobo, you know, living on the side of the road, but I pursued my dreams and my goals, I will be more satisfied than if I, you know, had a stable job all throughout my life, never achieved my actual goals or dreams, but I was safe, you know, I was retired, I was everything. And I look back on it and said, what could my life have been? You know what I mean? Like, where could I have gone in life?
That statement will kill you.
Yeah, and that is what I think I fear that more than I fear failure, and that is why. And I think everyone kind of has to learn that, right? Like, everyone has to kind of learn that. Look, there is a certain risk is scary, but by not accepting risk, by not trying something because of that fear of risk, you've already sealed yourself as you've failed, right? Because you've never achieved anything, right? Like,
most people on their deathbeds, like some guy studied, and I think all of them said that they regret not taking risks, doing what they loved.
Yeah.
And I think mainly for our audience is young. And I said this before, and I'll say it again, is look, okay, 99% of people dead, right? The people who are dead, they would give everything up just to be alive for one more day, right? Yeah. They just want that time. That's what every single high schooler has right now. They have that time. To do stuff. You know, they can explore, they can hang out. And the second thing that's really important, I feel like, is, again, being with the right people. So when we were doing our podcast, the cousin that we went to for our app, he kept on reminding me saying, yo, back in June, you told me about your podcast. What's happening? I'm like, oh, next week.
Just kept pushing it.
And he kept saying, he's like, dude, look, you got to step up now. You have to start. And finally, I was like, all right, you know what? We're going to do it. And then we did. And but having those people who want you to do it.
Yeah, who will support you.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's also like, that brings another thing, is commitment is a huge thing, right? You, like, again, we talk about side hustles, and we talk about, you know, because I mean, obviously in high school, you have to stay committed you can't just drop out of school, right? Even though you might like be achieving success, you know, and you might be like going really, like, everything might be going really well, I think, I mean, it's different for everyone, right? Like, you look at FaZe, who actually, he finished high school, but he finished early just so he could, because he was already successful, right? Like, there was no point of him continuing, you know, high school, because he was achieving success on far greater of a level than if he were to, you know, continue through high school, go to college, all the normal kind of like socio, you know, normal route, I guess.
People, the conventional routes.
The norm, right? And so, but I think for other people, it's just where your priorities are. So you can't sacrifice priorities necessarily all the time And I get that, right? Like, obviously we have obligations, we have school, we have, family, we have like things that we have to do, and that's where side hustle comes in, I think. But it's also like, you have to understand that there are things in your life that you can sacrifice, right? Free time, going out with friends, spending time on social media, watching TV.
That is a key point.
Yeah.
What we think right now that's important, we may say that, you know what, it's a Friday night, I had 5 days of school, I'm tired, I'm going to hang out with my friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we don't understand that our mindset, what we value as important, really isn't.
It's true.
Hanging out with friends right now, when you could be doing something that could boost your life up, prioritize working on what you want to do instead of chilling with your friends, or just binging Netflix.
Right.
Okay, look, we've reached a point in society where there's so much entertainment. And
There's
we've
so
talked
much.
about this in other episodes, but now the thing is on us. We have to have that discipline to say, I'm pushing that to the side and I'm going to do my thing.
Yeah, because procrastination is huge, and that affects, the things that matter most, right? But I think it's also, like exactly, like I do think it's important to find time to you can't just work 24/7, right? You can't work 100% of the time. So it is important to find that time to spend time with friends, relax a little bit, maybe watch a movie or two. But like, you also have to understand that, like, if you're spending hours a day on social media, if on the weekends you don't do anything productive, then you're not contributing to something, and I think it's different for people, right? Some people just haven't found a passion that they're interested in, or something that, they want to pursue. But I think if you have something that you want to pursue, I think what the procrastination is, what that spending that time on social media is it's a defense mechanism, because you're scared of failure. You don't want to risk it all. You don't want to put yourself out there. And I'm just as guilty of this. I will tell you, I have spent hours on Instagram when I should be working on client work, when I should be, working on films, or, doing business, doing podcast stuff. You know what I mean? I've spent a lot of that time, doing some of these things. And it's sort of just as almost like it is a defense mechanism. You know what I mean?
I was gonna ask, for both of you, I guess, what would you say to someone who just says they don't have a passion? How would you tell them to find it?
Okay, so first of all, I think if you don't have a passion, I'm gonna assume that you don't know enough about what you should be doing.
Yeah.
You need to be reading more. You should be keeping up with the current times. You should be exploring more. Okay. If your life is your school, your friends, and your phone, you won't find what you want to do. Try new things. Read a book. Read a biography. Say, oh, this guy did this. I was with a bunch of entrepreneur friends and they were doing stuff. I was like, well, I want to try something about this. Explore, expand. That's how you get new achievements. What do you think?
Well, I was gonna say, exploring is key. If you don't know what you want to do, first explore your interests, right? So what do you like to do? What makes you happy? What makes what's something you care about?
And sometimes you even find interest. Some people don't have hobbies.
And that's like exploring, right? So again, it's always like productive. You start with sort of the most kind of generic things. Hey, maybe music, maybe athletics, maybe going into, maybe I want to start a YouTube channel, right? Like sort of some of these things that are more common, and then from there you can say, I like that, I don't like that, and then you narrow it down, right? And honestly, inspiration hits at very strange times. And you can't like control that, right? You can't be like, okay, you can listen to our podcast and get inspired, but you can't like be like, oh, I'm just gonna be inspired to do something great in my life. Like, that's sort of just something that happens. You can set yourself up in those situations. You can be actively searching for inspiration, for motivation. But I think it's sort of a thing of like, when it comes to interest, when it comes to your passion, that's something, honestly, I know this is going to sound cheesy, but that's something that finds you, right? I feel like your passion very much finds you. And, it's just your job to accept that and to pursue it, right? Because I think passion can find you, but then you lose it.
If you don't act on it,
if
you're too busy.
If you don't pursue it,
you will
lose
through
it.
It's just
Exactly.
Go for it.
Yeah, exactly.
But what would you say to them?
Oh,
I
mean, what you guys said, like it will come to you if you're just like what you said, when you're just sitting at home on your phone all day. You go to school, come back, I don't know, take a 3-hour nap. If you have the same routine every day, you're not gonna find anything you're passionate about.
So I'm gonna end it off like this. We've talked about how failure, if you're in high school, if you're young, you have time. Fail, so what? Learn and move on, try something else. But now we want to end this off talking about your mindset. And in the end, it's your mindset. If you think that, oh, I am going to fail, I am going to lose, it's over for you from the start. If something bad happens to you, it's over for you from the start. If you saying, oh, it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
Your mindset is everything. You have to change your perception of everything. Make it all positive for you. And so with that, I'd like to end it just saying that, look, in your mind, just say that, oh, good things will happen to me. This is a good thing for me. Oh, I learned from here. You failed on a test. Oh, I learned that I didn't study hard enough, and I'm going to change it and study more now. It's all mindset.
Yeah.
And with that, thank you guys, both of you.
Thank you so much. This was fun.